Welcome to Scale Without Chaos, the podcast on business growth, visionary leadership, and scalable systems. Each week, you'll hear real stories, the messy parts, and the proven strategies that help leaders grow without burning out their team or themselves. And yes, you'll definitely hear a few spicy takes along the way. Here are some highlights from this week's episode.
Honestly, self-awareness is scary and it's very sticky because I think the other thing is too, if you are a true kind of entrepreneur, hustle, challenge person who sees a challenge and a problem and you fix it and rise to the occasion, well, as soon as you become self-aware, you become responsible for working and growing in that area.
I think every single business book on the planet says you need the right people in the right seats. Great. Okay. How do you actually do that? And now, this week's episode. I'm trying to make it more complicated than it actually is. I am actually introducing chaos where we don't need it, Laura. So let me try that again. So I am here with Laura Early, and she is the CXO and founder at Wise. Now, I look all over the globe for my podcast guests because I think it's so interesting what different people are doing with businesses and scaling. And I mean, any listener that's been here with me for a little while knows that. Well, Laura's story is much more driven by a mission, and I want her to go into it because I think, quite frankly, I won't do it justice. So, Laura, would you mind introducing yourself, where you are actually right now, and a little bit about your background and what your company does?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. My name is Laura Early. I am the founder of a company called Wise, or our long name is Wise Advise and Assist Team. And we help companies systematize, streamline, and scale without taking on employees. That's really the heart of what we do. But the real part of our mission behind our team is that we employ military spouses. I'm a military spouse myself. I have moved 8 times in the last 12 years. We have done probably hundreds of moves at this point on our team, but military spouses face an unemployment rate 3 times the national average because of how much we move and how much this life demands of families who have to be ready to support their soldier at any moment. And so that looks like being the primary parent, the primary caregiver. It looks like running a household. It looks like moving all over the world. And right now, my family is in Germany. We've been here for about 6 months. And so we packed up our whole lives about 6 months ago. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and we did it. We moved over. And so this was my first international move as a military spouse. Not my first move. I'm actually an immigrant as well. So I've lived internationally previously, but moved overseas, and we're continuing to build the business with this mission of employing military spouses, allowing them to have flexible remote careers anywhere the military takes them, which could be, overseas like I am now.
And I know I've said this to you before, but the fact that you have moved overseas with small children, just from mother to mother, that's amazing to me. Yeah, I can't believe that. And building a business, being a CEO of CXO or founder of CXO so much. And of course, thank you for your service as well as your family's service to our country. We obviously can't thank you enough for that. And so I just appreciate you being here, taking the time. It's so great to have this conversation.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you very much. This life, it challenges us in special ways. And so we got lots of fun stories to tell.
Oh, I can't wait to hear some of those. That's why we're here. So Scale Without Chaos is all about people, processes, and systems. And today with you specifically, I wanted to get into, because you spend a lot of time going through all different facets of businesses as well as the different departments. So you handle finance, you handle operations, you're touching all pieces of the business, really. I want to get into what are the common mistakes that CEOs make when they're trying to scale. That's the whole. I think if people were able to answer that question, there wouldn't be any more chaos. There wouldn't be any more mistakes. So it's a very obviously common problem. You've got lots of job security for the rest of your life. Mine too. So getting in and along those veins, I mean, what are some of the things, like right off the top of your head, that are just, if everyone just knew these things, they wouldn't have a problem scaling?
Oh man, I mean, I think you can't control and predict people. So I would say that I don't think that there's you could know all of the tips in the world, all of the stories, all the leadership logic, and I think there would still be chaos at some point because you can't predict people, you can't control people, and your clients are people, and your team is hopefully full of people, maybe some bots at this point. But you've got people on your team and you've got people that you're interacting with as clients, and people are unpredictable. And I think that that is the part that is the most challenging if business owners and leaders really think about it is a lot of times we're really good at whatever our skill is, our trade is. If we could just process it all to death, we wouldn't have any issues. It would be great. Everything would work
Yeah.
well. You could make a process that works well every time. People are the unpredictable part. So I would say that's the piece that most entrepreneurs are the most unprepared for. And there's probably the least amount of not training. So there's lots of training opportunities out there, but it's not the thing that everyone is talking about. Is how to we talk about leadership and how to be a good leader, but we don't necessarily always air our stories about how do you handle these certain situations that come up, particularly around scaling, because when you're scaling, it typically is happening quickly, and you have to have the right people in the right seats in order for that to go well.
Right. And there's so many different components to that to be able to
Yeah,
have the right
yeah.
people in the right seats, right? So you've got to
Sounds
get
so easy.
I mean, if you could just do that. I think every single business book
Yeah.
on the planet says you need the right people in the right seats. Great. Okay. How do you actually do that?
How do you do it?
How do you do that? You've got hiring. You have to be able to write a good job description. Really, what
Hmm.
do you actually want? You need to be able to find the right people. So you have to do recruiting correctly. And
Yeah,
then what you just mentioned too is about leadership is that it's
yeah.
very introspective. So it's how do you
Mhm.
react to certain areas of the business, but
Yes.
it's not necessarily how are you handling the complexity that is people
Yeah.
that are other human. And I was very lucky. I'm sure you have a scenario like this as well, but I was very lucky to have an HR leader that would sit down with me and actually role play in certain situations
Mm.
so that I knew and was prepared with what to say. But I took that on myself. I
Yeah.
said I needed the training. And if you don't do that, I completely agree with you. I think the first breakdown is people.
Yeah, I just think that self-awareness leads to self-development. And if you are not constantly learning about yourself and developing yourself, you're gonna fall short as a leader every single time. Because if you're not aware of your own tendencies, your own triggers, your own pitfalls, we all have them. None of us are gonna be perfect. We all have things that we do really well and things that we do poorly. And if you're not aware of those things, both skill wise, but also just in your communication patterns, things like that, you're not going to be able to do the best that you can. You constantly have to be learning about yourself and about others on your team in order to communicate well. Because I think the biggest breakdown I see in scale and when things fall apart is clarity, a lack of clarity.
There it
And
is.
you can't recognize a lack of clarity if you are only looking at yourself and you're not looking
Right.
out at everyone else and talking and not just hearing people, but truly listening to what people are saying around you, whether that's customers, team members, whoever it might be. But that's the biggest breakdown I see all the time in scales, a lack of clarity. And the biggest thing I hear from leaders, clients all the time is, well, I was clear. I told them clearly what I wanted. And I'm like, clarity is not a one-sided thing. Clarity takes you and the other parties involved coming to the same understanding. It's not a one-sided thing. I hear it all the time. Well, I wrote a very clear email. I give very clear instructions. And I'm like, clear clearly you didn't. Obviously you didn't if the people on the other side didn't understand them. And I think that that again just comes back to like taking yourself not so seriously and having that self-awareness of like, okay, well, clarity isn't just about me. It's got to involve these other people. And how am I asking the right questions to find out, do I actually communicate clearly like I think I do?
Yeah. So I'm going to use from now on self-awareness leads to self-development. I
Yeah.
think that is a perfect line to wrap all of what you just said
Yeah.
into a nice bow and say, here you go. Are you self-aware?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. And it is amazing to
Yeah.
me. Actually, maybe it's amazing to me. I'm not really sure. How many leaders think they're self-aware but aren't
Man.
actually self-aware. And I don't know if that's just because they can't be because they're so busy working on the business, and they're just, this is my business, this is what I'm doing, this is where we're going, and so they can't be for that
Yeah.
reason, or because they don't want to be. I'm not, or not really sure, or I'm not sure.
I think it's incredibly vulnerable to be self-aware. And so there's a lot of fear in it for people. They
Yeah.
would never verbalize it that way.
Yeah.
But being self-aware is incredibly vulnerable because it's admitting that there's things that you don't do well. And being self-aware in front of your team is incredibly vulnerable. And vulnerability, I know, is a big buzzword in leadership and it's talked about all the time. It's actually incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
Um, and especially I think in business because it's so easy for trust to get broken and things like that. So people come back. So I find that it has they're scared. Honestly, self awareness is scary and it's very sticky because I think the other thing is too, if you are a true kind of entrepreneur, hustle, challenge person who sees a challenge and a problem and you fix it and rise to the occasion. Well, as soon as you become self aware, you become responsible for working and growing in that area.
Right.
And we don't have time as business owners to have more to do. And it's really challenging and scary to work on yourself and work on things. And it's harder to figure out. It's not an easy problem to solve. Not that business problems are easy. They're not. But usually you can find a lot of resources and tap into it. But learning about yourself involves really you being introspective, you spending time asking hard questions, asking for feedback, being willing to listen to that feedback. And then once you're aware, you then have the responsibility to do something about it. So you're scared about figuring it out. And then when you do, you're like, man, another thing to do. I got to work on this too. It's a lot.
And to couple all of that with the fact that there's still a lingering remnants of the belief system
Oh,
where
100%.
if you were a leader, you have all the answers. And
Yeah.
and you're the one who is supposed to be the one who's leading through any type of chaos or
Yeah.
issues or wins. You're leading through it all. And so I think it completely shifted everything about leadership on its head when you start to be vulnerable. And so it's been interesting kind of watching that work its
Yeah.
way out of general corporate culture. It's still there. It absolutely
Yeah.
is still there.
And
But
I think
it
it's a fine balance. I mean, and people might get
yeah.
mad at me for that, but I think too, really understanding what vulnerability in the workplace too is
Yeah.
challenging. Vulnerability doesn't mean just like word
No,
vomiting and telling
yeah, don't
everybody everything,
overshare.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's a part of like trust that has to be there with your team so that when you do say, I don't actually know, that doesn't terrify them and think they're all going to lose their jobs tomorrow. They're like, okay, well, she doesn't know, but we always know she leans in to help figure it out, right? So there has to be that balance of making sure you're in the right environment for the right level of vulnerability. And again, it's just a lot to understand and think about, and not everyone innately has that type of emotional intelligence and people skill to be able to read the room in that way.
Yeah, that's one of the best indicators that you can look at is what is your EQ score?
Yeah,
Sure.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And I know you and I could probably talk people all day long because
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about
there's
others.
so
Yeah.
much. I know I love it.
So,
But I within the processes and systems part of scale
mhm.
as well. There's a few different questions that I wanted to get your feedback on. And the first one was again a most common question, but where do you normally see processes break down in scale? So if we're talking CEO, they're scaling for the first time, they're trying to go from 1 to 10 million. Where do you see that typically?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's clarity under people understanding the role. The company grows faster than the roles, the expectations, and then people's like decision rights, like what is
Yeah,
in my purview to make a decision on. So
exactly.
I think it comes down to those things, and then obviously if we go into like the tech stack side of that and systems side of that, there's those obvious things of not people not intentionally investing in systems that are going to work in the long run. It's really a lot of times people pick up technology reactively and they're like, oh, okay, we have a problem. So we need to get this CRM or we need this form thing and we need that. And they get it reactively. And that's never a good idea.
Yeah.
And it's like a band-aid. They're like it's a very expensive band-aid. And so I think there's both sides of those. I think it's like roles, expectations, decision rights, which is like the people within the process. And then there's also your technology as well of like, how do you handle your tech stack and your decisions around the systems that are going to help serve you.
I have a saying that I've said a million times, I feel like, and definitely on this podcast is resist the band-aid fix. Just resist
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
I understand why it's so tempting. I absolutely understand it. It might be cheaper. It might take less money. It might be something that you can implement quickly and then move on to the next thing that's on fire, but resist it as much as you can. It
Yeah.
will save you time and money in the long run for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And I think too, there's so many options out there. It's really overwhelming with kind of tech in a system that you're choosing. And I do think a lot of people just go with something because it is really overwhelming to make those decisions. And so it's that band-aid, but it's also I just need something. So I'm gonna go with this instead of taking the time to really make a thoughtful decision. But I think in order to make a thoughtful decision, you have to know where the company is headed. And that goes back to foundational things of making sure that you have a vision and you have a mission with the organization, you have targets, you have goals, like you have to know where you're going in order to know what you need to get there. And a lot of times people haven't quite thought through all the details of where they're going and what will be required to support that.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. So what is something that people should do earlier in terms of either planning or process? Was if they had done that a little bit sooner in their business journey, that things would be better for them overall.
Yeah, I'm on one. I think knowing where you're headed, like what do you
Yeah.
want? What
Yeah.
are what are your
Yeah.
goals? Like doing some serious like goal planning about what you're doing. And then I think a lot of people need to formalize some processes earlier than they do. I think we do a lot of like building the plane while we're flying it, which is part of starting a business and entrepreneurship. But there's some things that you really need to start formalizing earlier and have some SOPs around. One of those things for me is like client onboarding because it protects like your first impression, it sets expectations, it reduces internal chaos, and it prevents like scope creep with what you're doing with the client if you're a service-based business. And then you can like look at your budget tracking and then decision rights, like who approves what in what order, like those types of processes I think need to be solidified earlier. It doesn't mean they won't pivot and change as you grow and you
Oh,
learn
of
about what's
course.
working and what's not. But a
Yeah.
lot of times I see that people just kind of like they do it different every time
Yes.
and waste time and money.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think anything with training. So any type of employee onboarding, one of the things that I do
Yeah.
with my clients is go through an AI prioritization framework. And so it's
Yeah.
basically name the things that you're ignoring or what's messy that should be cleaned up and everything, every time, 10 times out of 10, my customer that I'm working with says training documentation. Our training
Mm,
documentation doesn't matter what
yeah.
we're training, doesn't matter. It could be they could
Yeah.
have 15 different training documents. All of them are out of date.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
single every single one
Yeah.
of them. And so that's, I think, why people don't do it earlier or haven't traditionally done it earlier. Now with AI, it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to update. But same thing with customer onboarding, client. So anything along those lines is for sure something that people don't do soon enough. And I think that something that most businesses try to do, especially in the B2B world, is to get the handoff between sales and marketing
Mm,
nailed down early.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't do it effectively ever. I mean, there are going to be people who will come at me for that one, but there's
Yeah. Sure. They will.
always
Yeah.
yeah, there's always something that is broken. Always something that is
Yeah.
broken in the handoff
Absolutely.
between sales and marketing. And I'm not even talking about the additional layer with customer success. When you actually transition into that, I'm just
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about from being a lead to being an opportunity. There is always something, and it could be something small,
Yeah.
like just someone forgot to fill in a field in the CRM,
Right.
or something big, but there's typically something in there. So spending
You're right.
a lot more time talking about how people are actually going to use the CRM, how marketing is actually going to interact with sales and how sales is going to interact with marketing.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time in being, I think you said it last time, so for real,
Yeah.
so for real about what that process actually is would
Yeah.
save everyone so much time in the long run.
Well, and I think the other thing is too, small things become big things. And
There you
and
go.
th
Yeah.
there's like small holes become big holes a lot faster than we think they will. And so
Yes.
some of these things feel like small potatoes, right? Like, oh, yes, the CRM and making sure everything's put in there correctly and blah, 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 blah. Like, we hear a lot of that. Like, why do I have to fill out this report? And I'm like, because someday you won't serve this client, someone else will, and they need to know the history of what happened here. So I think it's part of that too. People get such in the grind of their daily job and they know how to do their job. But people are not thinking about the future. And that's where the CEO, the business owner, the leader has to think about it, because that person won't be in that seat forever. So yeah, they know how to do it and it all lives up here. But if there's no documentation of any of it, what if they got hit by a bus? You're screwed because no one else knows how to do it. So it's always thinking about, like, how are you future proofing your business? And it takes time. And when you're building quickly, you're scaling quickly, there's a lot going on. It feels counterintuitive to, like, pause, let's document this. Let's write this down. Let's make sure we're doing this the right way. It doesn't feel like that is the right move to make.
Right. And I'm going to layer the people part back on
Yeah.
to the process part, because, and this is just advice for any leader that's out there right now, to spend a little bit more time. I'm going to make another plug for that sales marketing handoff.
Yeah.
The fact that you could not have picked two more distinct personality types to need to work together on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so I think people underestimate that all the time. I mean,
Oh, 100%.
marketing is so process driven or creatively driven.
Mhm.
And so the CRM makes a lot of sense to them. And sales traditionally is, I want to meet with clients. I want to move as fast as I can. So
Mhm.
would not have put two more distinct personality types together. So think about that too as you're trying to scale your businesses.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I think understanding your team, understanding their personalities, understanding their preferred working style and how they work, and there's lots of great tools to figure those things out, is really helpful, because then it goes from, wow, this person, I see this, my business partner and I talk about this a lot, because she's a very much, like, if she has an idea, she wants it executed now, today, right now, let's move. Why are we not moving? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Have we thought about, like, how this will impact over here? And so that's why it makes us a great partnership. But she'll often, talk about how we can make accidental messes because we're doing something faster. We're not considering this. We're not looking at this. And so understanding that goes back to self-awareness, but it also goes back to team awareness and understanding the players that you're working with. Okay, if you have someone who likes to go slower, you have someone who likes to go faster, those are both really beautiful things. How do we get them to work together to make sure we actually move at an optimal pace with all the different considerations? Because one's not right and wrong. We don't want to move at a snail's pace, but we also don't want to go so fast that we neglect everything else. And so you can find really dynamic partnerships in that way. And I'm really fortunate to have that in my business partner, because we challenge each other in that way of, like, okay, what is the optimal? Like, what do we need to look at here in order to get this done in a really great way?
My favorite is StrengthsFinder, hands down.
Okay.
StrengthsFinder. That worked so well for me in the past, and since I was introduced to it,
Mhm.
I have used it with every single team that I've had since then.
Yeah.
And it is just, it's amazing. It's 20 different markers, 24 different
Yeah.
markers, and
It's
it
24
breaks
markers.
down. Yeah, 24 markers there. And I just find it to be so incredibly powerful. I'll tell you a quick story about it and why I feel that way. So
Mhm.
we just keep going back to people. That's fine. But it
Yeah.
all layers in together.
It's
People,
all layers
process.
in. Yeah.
Uh, when the first team that I was part of took the Strengths Finder, it was a global team. There were 50 people, and the CEO made a comment, or
Mhm.
CMO, excuse me, CMO made a comment about how she didn't think that there would be a lot of people that would score high in the strategic category in
Oh,
front
okay.
of people, but said that
Wow.
she didn't feel like
Yeah.
that was going to be the case. Yeah, yeah. And so we got the results back, and it was really interesting to see, because of course they give you the results for the
Mhm.
entire team. Everyone who was in or had that strategic marker wasn't in a leadership role.
Mhm.
Had no way to
Yeah.
influence any type of decision. Other than myself, I was in the leadership role, and I
Yeah.
had strategy as a marker. But that was there were 6 or 7 other people out of a team of 50 who were not in leadership roles and didn't have a chance to share that. And I did call
Yeah.
that out. I did call that out. I said,
Yeah.
this is maybe an opportunity for us to reorient around some of the things that we're doing so that these people have the opportunity to
Right.
share what they have. And of course, 24 markers, there's so many great gifts that can be
Right.
used across the team. It was just that exercise stuck with me and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah. I'm an MBTI girly, so I like the Strengths Finder. I have some bones to pick with Strengths Finder, but that's more of a personal thing. But I will say one that we really like for work specifically. It's from Pat Lencioni. It's called the Working Genius,
Mm.
and I find that that's a really quick, easy. It's a quick, easy assessment. It's low cost and it's really easy to I think understand and implement because it's around your work and not
Yeah.
necessarily around personality. I think you need to pair it with a personality assessment, but it's a really good one for companies who are looking for something to be able to figure out um, why are we failing in certain areas, especially when it comes to scale, because it focuses around six geniuses that all line up with project process from ideation and wonder to kind of that invention, tenacity, the completion. And so if you lack any of those, like we actually we lack a lot of wonder on our team. We don't have a lot of it.
Oh,
And so that's really helpful for us when we're going into let's think about new creative ideas and all this. We have a lot of like discerners and a lot of loyal doers, people who want to get stuff done, people who want to poke holes in things. That's me. I love to poke holes. I can only wonder for so long before my curiosity steps in and I'm like, okay, but what about this? And have we thought about this? And what about this question? Right. And so it's really helpful and it's a quick and easy one that I like because and I think companies that sometimes are a little bit more open to it because it's not a personality assessment. It's
yeah.
really around where are your preferences when that comes to work. And we all obviously have all of the geniuses. It's just kind of where when we're working in flow and in our area that we love, it's good to know that. And it also reveals the areas for me, like wonder. Actually, wonder is not a big one for me is tenacity. Like actually, like I don't the nitty gritty of getting things done is not my favorite thing. But it's a part of my job. Everyone
Mm.
has to do every one of the
Yeah.
six areas. And so it brings awareness around, okay, that might not be my strongest preference. So I know if I have a lot of those tasks type to do, admin tasks, I need to be in this headspace on this day. So it's a really good one, especially if, again, you're having some issues with in the middle of scale, it might be a quick, easy tool for people to utilize
I love
and figure out where are they lacking in the project
that's great.
process. Yeah.
I'm going to check that out and then we'll
Yeah.
compare notes. I
Yeah,
would
please
love
do.
to.
It's
Yeah.
not the same. It's not the same as Strengths Finder. I will tell you.
No.
It's not a personality assessment. It's very different, but it's a great tool for the work environment, and especially as you're talking about system scale. It's understanding because if you it follows the process, right? So if you lack people who have like ideation and wonder and can think about things, or if you lack people on the other side, towards the end, the tenacity it shows in your project process. A big one that people lack is kind of that galvanizing and enablement, which is like getting people involved and rallied
They,
around a new idea and moving forward. And so that's a
yeah,
big one. If you don't have that, if you don't have someone who's really good at that, um, you're only going to get so far with what
right.
you're doing. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great tool.
I love those. It's so eye opening. And I love it when you
Yeah.
can compare it against the team and
Right.
what you have. It's so
And
cool.
it becomes a little less personal because we're all talking about this thing together. And I do find that
Mhm.
sometimes just having a shared language, whether it's Strengths Finder, MBTI, this, whatever it is, having a shared language really helps, especially when you have to do things quickly and you're in the middle of a scale and you have to make a decision. It goes from being like, why is Samantha being so, why is she so against everything I bring up? Blah, 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 blah. She's
Yeah,
not actually against it. She's asking questions. She wants to make sure we get it right. And knowing that it's coming from that headspace rather than she's just trying to be a pain and prevent us from going faster, it changes the environment. So it can be really helpful, whatever you choose, to kind of have that shared language of understanding of how we talk about things.
for sure. Absolutely. I love that. Those are always such great tools when you're
Yeah.
scamming.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to throw you what I love to
Okay.
call a chaos question. Are you ready, Laura?
I'm ready. I love
Okay.
chaos. Let's go.
So this is a new segment that we're doing on the podcast where I pull a question from somewhere on the internet that I can find something similar to what we're talking about and just basically pop fly it to the guest
Yeah.
and see how they're doing. And so I asked Laura ahead of time if she wanted me to pop fly this or not. She said it was up to me. And so I said, well, we're going to just surprise you then. Okay. So here is the question, Laura. The last time we scaled, we hired fast and thought we were growing, but it turned out that we weren't scaling right and
Mm.
eventually had to let people go. I've seen this a couple
Oof.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are getting busy and about to ramp up again. What are some things that we definitely need to be thinking about above and beyond what we already have mentioned so that we don't make the same mistakes again? We don't want to let people go.
Well, I think you have to have some really strong awareness around what you need and how much you need. Because what tends to happen when people have a lot happening really quickly is they overhire. And it sounds like I have a lot of questions for this person, but it sounds like they may have overhired. Um, and they may have overhired. And if they didn't overhire, it sounds like they maybe didn't have some clear communication to the people they were hiring about what these roles were. And I think that's really important too. So one, you have to be really conscious of what you need, and how long do you need it for? And are we hiring to plug a hole or are we hiring long-term sustainability? Because those are two different things. And I think when you're in the middle of a fire hose of growth, it's really hard to take a step back and say, is this just like a fire hose moment?
Okay.
Or is this the momentum at which we're going to be for the foreseeable future? So you have to have some really strong awareness around the business to understand that. And if it is, this is a fire hose moment and we need to plug a hole, that's okay. But that goes into, I think, the hiring conversations you're having. Hey, we're looking for a short term role to fill. It does this, Y, and Z. It's going to be these hours. And we hope it will grow into a long term position, but we're not confident at this point. We're not 100%. And that just creates an openness and awareness. So if you do have to let someone go, you're not in a long-term commitment with them. They understood that even if you wanted them and they like you like them, it's going really well, that the needs of the business might not be there to keep them long-term. And I've just learned that. And the nature of what we do, I think the more transparent you can be with people about what you need and what you're doing, the better the response is going to be if you have to in turn let somebody go. But I would hope that you could be more aware of the business needs and more aware of you learn from this mistake that's happened before. The business is always talking, it's always telling us things.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
look back, okay, well, why did we overhire, or were we not clear on the rules? How was it we hired 4 people and it was 2 people? Look at those things to see, could it have been prevented? And if it couldn't have been prevented because you were plugging holes, okay, what could have been prevented? I think is probably the relationship dynamic between you and those individuals and their understanding of what this role is, whether it's long-term, short-term, part-time, full-time, whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah. I've seen this happen enough times.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is really exciting to get excited
Oh, yeah.
when sales are rolling in, right? When the
Yeah.
sales team is hopping and deals are closing all over the place. It
Mhm.
is especially for people who have dedicated their lives to doing
Mhm.
something. It's like, yes, it's finally taking off. Let's go full force, let's move. And sometimes the data is available, sometimes the data isn't available. And I know that leadership teams can get into debates around whether or not to hire. And I think those debates are healthy for the reason of
Right.
exactly what you said. Did we overhire? But sometimes you can get into analysis paralysis and you can let things go too long. And then
Mhm.
the people that you have are stuck doing extra
Yep.
work and that impacts morale in a
Sure.
different way.
Well,
But I
it's hire fast, fire or hire slow, fire fast. I
there you
mean, and
go.
not
No,
because, yeah, I mean, it's and not because you want to be ruthless about it, but
no.
because the longer people sit around, the harder it becomes, the harder the conversation, the harder the expectation. Like there's just so many things that play into that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if the data is not if the data is there, the biggest thing
Yeah,
that I would be
I hope
looking
so.
at would be what is the average tenure of a customer, obviously.
Yes,
What is the average
absolutely.
lifetime value? And then we can start deciding what we're doing here. And then is the close rate of the sales team going up or down? And is it just a volume thing right now, or are we talking about no, this is legitimate. We're
Mhm.
keeping our same close rate and we're increasing volume and we are legitimately growing.
Yeah. Well,
So
and how aware are you of your team capacity as well? Like I always say to start inside first. Have you
mm,
asked your team if there's anyone who's willing to take on more before you go start hiring?
yeah,
And
the
most of
start
the time the
inside
answer is
piece.
no. We just need more. We need more. We need more. We have sales. We need more. And it's like, but if you
Yeah,
asked anyone, hey, would you be willing to take on an extra 20 hours for 3 months? I
yeah,
don't know. You had to
yeah,
ask them.
yeah, yeah. I've seen
And
that
are you
too.
aware of your capacity of your team, right? Like that's the other thing. Like how aware are you about what your team is doing, how they're performing? I mean, there's so many markers. It's like I said earlier, if I have so many questions, comes like if you have this information, this is how I would approach it. If you don't have this information, you know,
You need more.
then
Yeah,
then it's need more. Yeah. You need to
yeah.
go find it.
I agree. It's just something that I know I've been a part of businesses that have gone through it, and I know a lot of businesses do now. And I think we're probably seeing that quite a bit after
Yeah.
some of what's happening right now. So I said, you know
Yeah.
what? Laura's going to be a great person to answer this question, and you were. So thank
Thank
you for that.
Well, I've been in that
Excellent.
situation. I've been there, so I can have some
Right?
personal experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's not
it's
fun.
tough. It's tough,
Yeah,
and
it's tough.
it is so easy to get so excited,
Yeah,
about when
I
you're
think so too.
growing and things,
Yeah.
and you never wanna think about the exit strategy with something like that, like, what
No,
happens if
no.
that ends up going, and the for back to the whole, "Here's how you work and the strengths and when you work." I mean, that's,
Mhm.
let's poke holes in this plan and go through it. So
Yeah.
it's just taking some time and poke some more holes.
Well, and no one, I hopefully, ever hires someone with the intention of firing them within 6 months. Like, that's not or a year, like, that's never the intention. We hire people, hopefully, unless it's a shorter arrangement, and we've had that conversation. Most of the time when we're making these hiring decisions, our intent is for this to be a long-term fit.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And that's how at least from my
Yeah.
values-based perspective,
Yes.
that's how you
Yeah,
should be.
same.
Yeah. From my values-based perspective, that's definitely it.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, Laura, I think we have covered everything that I wanted to cover today during this episode, and it's been such a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love this topic. I love talking with people about scaling before they're there because a lot of times we talk about it once we're in it, but once you're in it, it's okay. Just make sure that you're asking, some good diagnostic questions to figure out, where you are, where you're headed, what you need. And that's usually just taking the time to pause and ask really good questions of yourself and of the company will help you be in a better situation.
And that's a perfect line to wrap this one up. Thank you, Laura. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. And we'll see you next time on Scale Without Chaos. Thank you for tuning in to Scale Without Chaos. If today's episode sparked new ideas or gave you a fresh perspective, do me a favor. Hit that follow button, subscribe for new episodes, and share this with someone who's going through what we talked about today. This podcast is all about visionary leadership, sustainable business growth, and the systems that make scale possible. For more content, free resources, and behind-the-scenes insights, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow along on Instagram at Scale Without Chaos, and subscribe to the newsletter.